iyi akşamlar. Bugün 11 Şubat Perşembe Community Web TV haber bülteniyle yeniden karşınızdayız. Birleşik Krallık dünyada koronavirüsten en çok etkilenen ülkelerden biri olmaya devam ediyor. Son 24 saatte 678 kişi hayatını kaybetti. Dün bu sayı 1001 idi. Geçtiğimiz haftalara göre ölüm oranındaki azalmanın denenen yeni tedavi yöntemlerinden kaynaklanabileceği düşünülüyor. Vaka sayısında da bir azalma var fakat günlük oran hala 10 binin üzerinde. Birleşik Krallık'ta Aralık ayında 225 bin kişinin çeşitli tedaviler için en az bir yıldır sıra beklediği ortaya çıktı. Bu hastalar arasında diz ve kalça ameliyatlarını bekleyen hastalar da var. Koronavirüs nedeniyle Birleşik Krallık'ta diğer hastalıkların tedavilerinin aksatıldığı açıklandı. Sağlık Bakanlığı'nın verilerine göre 225 bin kişi en az bir yıldır ameliyat sırası bekliyor. Bu sayıya düzenli olarak check-up yaptıranlar, kontrollere tabi tutulanlar ve fizik tedavi görenler dahil değil. Bu sayı 2019 yılının Aralık ayında sadece 1500'dü. Özellikle diz ameliyatı olmak zorunda olanların ciddi sıkıntılar yaşadığı, hatta birçok kişinin fiziksel hareketlerinde kalıcı hasarların oluştuğu belirtiliyor. Özellikle Kasım, Aralık ve Ocak ayında artan koronavirüs vakaları nedeniyle diğer hastaların tedavisi aksadı. Sadece Aralık ayında yapılan rutin kanser kontrollerinde 200 bin kişi kontrole çağrıldı ve bu sayı içinde 25 bin kişinin kanser olduğu açıklandı. Bütün bunlar bir kez daha NHS için yeterince kaynak ayrılmamasının insan ölümlerine neden olduğu yorumunu yapıldı. NHS her gün çoğalan tedavi sıralarına yetişemezken birçok bilim insanı ve sendikanın çağrıları görmezden geliniyor. Salgın döneminde NHS'e verilmesi gereken para büyük işletmelere verildi. NHS'e 15 milyar ek bütçe verilirken patronlara ise 550 milyar sterlin destek yapıldı. Koronavirüs tedavisinde yeni bir yöntem kullanılacak. Sağlık Bakanlığı'ndan yapılan açıklamaya göre tocilizumab adı verilen yeni tedavi yöntemiyle binlerce kişinin ölümünün önüne geçileceği belirtiliyor. Yapılan açıklamaya göre bu yöntemle tedavi şansı en az %24 artacak. Öte yandan Imperial College'da yapılan bir araştırma, koronavirüs geçiren hastaların tedavi sonrası hayatlarının ciddi oranda değiştiğini söylüyor. Salgını geçiren hastaların %41'inin psikolojik sorunlar yaşadığı ortaya çıkarıldı. Koronavirüsle birlikte artan online satışlar nedeniyle Ekim ayında Royal Mail geçici olarak işe aldığı 33 bin postacıdan 10 bininin işine bir süre daha devam edeceğini açıkladı. Ekim, Kasım ve Aralık aylarında tarihinin en yoğun 3 ayını geçiren Royal Mail bu 3 ayda 496 milyon paket servis yaptı. Royal Mail günde yaklaşık 12 milyon paket dağıtımı yapıyor. Bu işçilerin kalıcı sözleşme yapması konusundaysa henüz bir açıklama yapılmadı. Ünlü yönetmen Ken Loach'a antisemitist suçlaması yapıldı. Oxford Üniversitesi'nde hayatını ve eserlerini konu alan bir konferansa katılacağı açıklanan Loach'a bazı lobi grupları tarafından iftiralar atılarak konferansın iptal edilmesi zorlandı. Üniversite konferansı iptal etmedi ve etkinliği saatinde başlattı. Ken Loach'un Filistin halkına yönelik İsrail saldırılarına karşı çıkması antisemitist suçlamasına neden oldu. Muhafazakar Parti içinde yer alan Yahudi lobisi olarak bilinen gruplar, Ken Loach'a bu suçlamayı yaparak İsrail'in eleştirilmesinin önüne geçmeye ve Filistin halkına karşı yapılan katliamların üzerine örtmeye çalışıyor. Ken Loach'a yapılan bu saldırı karşısında başta Jeremy Corbyn ve Tarık Ali olmak üzere çok sayıda aydın, sanatçı ve politikacı desteklerini açıkladı. İskoçya geçtiğimiz gün son yılların en soğuk gecelerinden birini geçirdi. Önceki gece eksi 17 dereceyle son 10 yılın en soğuk gecesini geçiren İskoçya, dün gece de bir rekora imza attı. Eksi 23 dereceyle son 25 yılın en soğuk gecesini geçirdi. 1955 yılından bu yana ilk kez Şubat ayında bu kadar soğuk bir gece yaşandığı söyleniyor. Türkiye Halklarıyla Danışma Kampanyası Spot 21 Şubat'ta Boğaziçi Üniversitesi öğrencilerinin mücadelesini konu alan bir konferans yapacak. Online konferansa Birleşik Krallık ve dünyanın birçok yerinden akademisyenlerin yanı sıra Boğaziçi'li öğrenciler ve öğretim üyeleri katılacak. 2 Ocak'tan bu yana yapılan eylemler esnasında üretilen sanat eserleri konferansta sergilenecek. Yapılan şarkılar, sergiler ve videolar da konferansta izleyici için derlenecek. Konferansın sonundaysa Boğaziçi Üniversitesi öğrencilerinin mücadelesi ile daha fazla dayanışma için bir eylem planı çıkarılması hedefleniyor. Boğaziçi Üniversitesi öğrenci ve hocalarına dört bir yandan destekler gelirken duvar yazılaması yaptıkları gerekçesiyle gözaltına alınan öğrencilere destek olmak için adliye önünde bekleyen arkadaşları da gözaltına alındı. Diğer yandan İstanbul Üniversitesi akademisyenlerinin Beyazıt Meydanı'nda yapmak istedikleri basın açıklamasına polis izin vermedi. Kaymakamlığın yasakladığı bilgisini veren polis, akademisyenlerin beklemelerine dahi izin vermedi. Bunun üzerine toplu bir şekilde yürümeye başlayan akademisyenler basın açıklamasını yürüyerek yaptılar. Öte yandan Kocaeli Üniversitesi dayanışmasının yapmak istediği eyleme polis saldırdı. 17 kişi gözaltına alındı. Aralarında Emek Partisi GYK üyesi Tarık Erkan, Eğitim Sen Şube Sekreteri Ömer Furkan Özdemir'in de bulunduğu çok sayıda kişi gözaltına alındı. Evet, haber bültenimizden bugünlük de bu kadar. Yayınımız Helin Şahbaz'ın sunacağı Gençliğin Sesi programıyla devam edecek. Yarın görüşmek üzere, hoşçakalın.
Welcome, everybody. On behalf of Day-Mer Youth, I would like to welcome you all to our first program at Community Web TV. This is a new channel for the youth to get their voices heard, or a fantastic opportunity for those interested in developing their skills in media production. If interested, please do message us and we will be in touch. As mentioned earlier, this is our first Youth Web TV episode. We have a packed hour for you. In this series, we will be talking about the latest topics and debates that are currently occurring around us. The aim of this is to keep the youth up to date with the developments and to make you aware of key information that you may need during the pandemic and to make you aware of the campaigns and events that you may be interested to get involved in. One campaign that we should all know is the one taking place in Boğaziçi University in Istanbul, Turkey. Currently in Boğaziçi University, there are a series of protests happening due to the appointment of the rector. Rather than going through the usual steps of an election, the rector is being chosen by no other than Erdogan. Our first clip will be from Anil, who has put together a series of clips to inform us on the events that are happening on the Boğaziçi University and why we should get involved.
Where a chancellor is appointed by the country's president.
Imagine that this chancellor was not even an academic at the university and was close to the president.
And imagine this, all your struggles for independence and autonomy are destroyed by the state that scolds you, telling you to look down at the ground.
This is the situation at Istanbul Boğaziçi University. Since January, students and educators have been fighting against the incumbent chancellor, Melih Bulu.
Bulu is a founding member of the governing AKP and was appointed by Turkey's president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, through the use of a decree.
In Turkey, appointment of individuals into official duties by the president is becoming the norm, and resisting is becoming more and more difficult.
Police are ruthlessly attacking protesters at Boğaziçi with tear gas and rubber bullets. There have been at least 160 people detained since protests began.
While detained, they are constantly attacked, face inhumane treatment and humiliation. The struggle at Boğaziçi University concerns the whole of society because they are defending the most fundamental rights.
The rights of freedom of thought, freedom of assembly, student representation, and the freedom of association and organisation.
As students who live and study in Britain, we recognise the struggle of Boğaziçi students and support their cause for independent education institutions.
We will not look down. We will raise our voices. Long live international solidarity.
Our next clip will be from Enila. Elena is going to talk about some of the myths that have been circulating around the myths about the vaccine by the public. She will tell us what is true and what is false, and will also provide us with true information on the vaccinations.
very worried about the long-term impacts of the vaccine. People are saying things like it causes infertility, and as we know, the vaccine hasn't been around for a long term. So if you could please talk to us about the long-term impacts, or whether there is any long-term impacts which affect us, our health, our daily routines.
Long-term side effects of vaccines in general are incredibly rare, and reactions to vaccines are usually evident within hours of administration. And saying that, out of 1 million people vaccinated, only 1 or 2 of these people develop severe allergic reactions, and this is usually due to underlying conditions. And this is the same for all vaccines, not just the COVID vaccine. Many people have been worried about the side effects of the vaccine, such as developing a fever and muscle aches. However, this is common with all vaccines, like the flu vaccine. These symptoms are a positive sign that your immune system has recognized the vaccination and is starting to produce a response towards it. Once it produces the response, if you are ever in contact with that virus again, it is able to protect you from it, preventing you from developing any severe symptoms from it. Evidence has shown that the complications of contracting the virus itself can be deadly, and it is simply not the case with the vaccine. The long-term complications of contracting the virus include increased risk of blood clots. And this is when your blood thickens and it can result in blockage of your arteries that deliver blood to your heart. And therefore, blood cannot be supplied to your heart and it can result in stopping. So essentially, the vaccine does much more good than harm. It will protect you from the actual virus itself and all of the complications that come along with it. Thus, contracting the virus itself is so much worse than the risk associated with taking the vaccine. So take the vaccine and protect those around you and yourself. There have been many claims that the COVID vaccine causes infertility. Many people have said that the spike protein formed after receiving the mRNA-based vaccine causes blockage of the proteins required for the uterus to remain attached to the placenta. The uterus being the organ that a baby is contained in once pregnancy occurs, and the placenta being the organ that forms during pregnancy, which provides oxygen and nutrients to the baby. The protein in question is critical for the placenta and the uterus to remain attached. However, this is not the COVID-19 spike protein. The two share a few similar molecules, however, they are simply not the same protein, and so the mRNA vaccine has no links to infertility. Vaccines in general have no links to infertility.
This vaccine was produced in an extremely short amount of time by a group of scientists who were put under immense pressure by the government and society as a whole. So how can we be sure that this vaccine is actually effective and genuine and something that is going to help our community instead of something that has potentially bad side effects and has been rushed to impress the media and the government?
It may seem like 7 months is not enough time to produce a vaccine. However, if we put it into perspective, the production and trials were incredibly strict and detailed, which it had to be considering we were in a state of global standstill as a result of this virus. Usually, productions of vaccines can take around 5 years, and this is as a result of many reasons, including that it is difficult to find sufficient funding to support this research. In addition to this, it is difficult to find the number of people that is required for these trials to be conducted and produce safe vaccines. However, in the case of COVID, government emphasised on placing funding towards the production of this vaccine, and therefore funding was not an issue. There were many people who volunteered to be part of this trial and allowed confirmation for the safety of this vaccine and to be used globally. In addition to this, many scientists worked together to bring about this vaccine, and the fact that the COVID-19 virus is similar to other coronaviruses we have seen in humans, like SARS, we had previous research on these viruses which we used to speed up the process. And therefore, in context, it was not a rushed process, and actually it was a very rigorous process which was placed under many trials and is incredibly safe for use.
A lot of people are saying that taking vitamins and drinking alcohol helps with COVID. Can you give us things that actually do help with COVID, and can you tell us whether this is true or false?
The WHO website has mentioned that many people have claimed that vitamins like D and C can be used to treat and prevent COVID-19. Similarly, I have heard many people, especially in my community, talking about drinking water infused with things like vinegar and lemon have been the key to preventing them from getting the virus and would rather this than taking the vaccine. Although proper nutrients and vitamins like C and D are key to a well-functioning immune system, there is little guidance on the use of these vitamins and natural remedies to treat COVID-19. There have also been many claims that alcohol can protect you against COVID-19. However, this is simply not true. High concentrations of alcohol at around 60 to 90% can kill viruses, but only on skin. Alcohol does not reduce the chances of acquiring COVID-19, and if anything, alcohol consumption can pose great risks to health. A number of people have been claiming and joking about the use of a microchip in the vaccine. In order for this to be the case, the microchip would have to be 1,000 times smaller than the smallest microchip in the world, which is simply not possible or at all cost effective. If this was the case and someone did want to watch you, it would be much more worthwhile to place a tracking chip into your phones, which would provide them with much more information that your body will. Your phone contains the information to where you spend your money and who you talk to, and this is probably much more worthwhile than placing it into your skin or into your body. It is very unlikely that the government wants to know where you go for your weekly shop.
We're very worried about the long term.
Now we have Jem, who will have an interview with the university student Michelle, where he will be asking her questions on the protests that took place in UK universities. We will see and hear the impact of COVID on university students.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. My name is Jem. I currently work in the construction sector. I'm a part-time student at Birkbeck University. I'm joined by Michelle Francis, who's a student at Bangor University, and we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges that are facing students are currently faced with. Michelle, thanks very much for joining us. We just want to start by asking, what's your current situation at the moment? How's the Welsh Government handling situation there?
All right, so the current situation at the moment is that students are still being asked to pay for rent for unused halls. They're being asked to pay for a whole year's rent, really, especially for those who haven't been inside their halls all year. Then it's like even more of a detriment to them financially. I've got a friend who was only in halls for 2 weeks, and she's being asked to pay a whole year's worth, even though she has evidence for why she was leaving. So a lot of students are in the exact same situation as her, and also students who are in private halls are in the same situation. And there's just not enough, we don't have enough money at all really to pay it back. And we can't get a job to get extra money for that because of the job opportunities here are very limited at the moment. So we're being pushed into this corner, and the university have been saying that they've been going to try and get us reductions, but they're not doing enough at all. They tried to give us 10% off, but it was a 10% off, but only if you stayed within your halls or kept on paying the whole contract for the whole year. But they should never have had these tight contracts in the first place if they cared about students' lives and student safety.
Absolutely. Michelle, are you currently in halls, and what year of study are you in?
I'm in the first year of study, and I'm in halls at the moment. So yes,
right,
a lot of first years are in the same position, and it's really awful as well, because a lot of first years, they're so young, and I'm luckily a bit older because I took 2 years away from before I went to university. But a lot of first years, this is their first time living away from home, and they are completely isolated without any support, any communication from the university, inside these rooms, these small rooms. And there is, especially for international students as well, there is just such a huge lack of support. And like the mental health staff are being extremely overworked at the moment. There's been really terrible stories I've heard all across campus, and I've heard lots of ambulances going around for students.
Almost prison-like size hall rooms that we've got. Yeah. So I know there was a situation after everyone returned home around the December break, and the government sort of insisted that students should go back to university. They went back to their campuses, and then they were asked to stay indoors and then learn online. Yeah. So it was a bit sort of defeats. Why couldn't they have just done that, stayed at home in the first place? They wouldn't be isolated from their families. They would probably have a bigger house to sort of stay in. Was that the situation in Bangor as well? Is that
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so many students were just asking, like, why am I here? Because we were lied to, essentially, in the sense that they told us that we would have blended learning here. A lot of students came here just for the fact that they knew that if there were the lessons that were physical, they would be attending them and they wouldn't want to miss out on them. But as soon as we came, there was maybe like 1 or 2 or 3 lessons that were physical, but the rest of the time, it was all online. And, you could see, like, you had these, few tokenistic physical lessons, but even then, they should never have opened the campuses in the first place, really. Like, you don't have to be a genius to work out that if you're in the middle of a pandemic and you're going to open campuses and invite students from all across the world to go into this really small, concentrated area space, and, there's going to be, it's not the best idea in the world. And when we put this to the university executive, they were evading the subject and they were saying, oh, we don't have a crystal ball, but it's obvious.
But yeah, I think I would definitely agree with that. I think there was a lot of people that were sort of raising alarms to say this is what was going to happen. And that is what actually happened. And it's a bit frustrating from what I've seen, is that I feel like the students almost got the blame for spreading the virus when actually they're put in that situation. How are sort of students on halls coping at the moment? Has there been any outbreaks in your halls?
Not in my flat, especially. But I think there have been outbreaks inside, like, halls around me, especially. I haven't been able to interact very much with the people inside my halls, really, because of regulation and things like that. But I've heard, like, but there was the flat next door to us were pretty much like locked down. Everybody inside it was locked down for 2 weeks, unable to leave. It was just, and like a lot of the time in the beginning as well, we didn't have any food. Students were asked, especially that new students were asked to try and order something from like the co-op and get one of their friends to pick it up. And these are students that have only just gotten in here. They don't know anybody else other than the people in their halls. Like one of my friends had to be stuck for 4 weeks because of 2 different people getting COVID. And it was up to me. I was the only person that she could reach out to in that point of time for food. And it was just like, it's atrocious. It's so bad.
Michelle, what's the university doing at this? It just sounds like they don't care very much. It's sort of just left you all to
left to our own devices. So they did get food eventually. They got food, I think, after like 2 to 3 weeks. They got food. They got catering for students. But other than that, like, if you have dirty washing, they say just wash it in the sink. Like, we're not allowed to go to the laundry room, kind of thing, like that. They haven't got us very good mental health. They've cut staff really from our mental health services over the year for restructuring. They've cut staff from student support, and they're trying to expect students to be living and thriving well when we're in worse mental health conditions, worse environment for our mental health, and we have less support for us. It doesn't make any sense. So they have not been communicating with us enough at all. Any of the services available. The only thing that they seem to have been doing has been just making cuts to staff, so that staff are even more stressed out and students are even more stressed out. And it's just, declining the quality for something that we're paying so much money for.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like there's decisions being made at executive level and students and staff are not being heard. Actually, going into the second semester, I was studying part-time. And I remember that was last year. There was the lecturers had to resort to strike action because what their concerns weren't being listened to. And then we had the pandemic and we were sort of learning online. So there was definitely a sort of reduced service from the universities, but that didn't seem to affect their tuition fee levels or anything else for that matter. We've seen a lot of strike action, rent strike action across the UK. What's your version of events, Michelle? I've seen that you also organised the Bangor rent strike campaign. How's that going?
So we had to postpone our campaign for a while until April because a lot of our rent, it's done every semester basically. So like every 3 months, we have a rent due in, and then we were one of the first universities to have our rent date. So one of the earliest rent dates was our university, if not the earliest rent date. And it was only 2 days after people were back in campus. We only had 2 days, an opportunity to campaign and get people to hold their rent. And unfortunately, the university, you know, they were making it as hard for us as possible to do that. They were changing the methods of cancelling rent every day. They were mixing things up, even like in the middle of the day. They were changing things around, making it harder for students to be able to cancel their payment. And it just meant that there was insufficient numbers for us at that point in time. But we are carrying on working, we're carrying on campaigning for the next opportunity in April, as we have a lot more time to campaign for then. But from our activity with the media and with the Parliament and the Senate here, we've been working hard, and we managed to achieve £40 million from the government to be funding for universities in Wales. And that was a big win for us. And that wasn't just from Bangor University rent strikes, that was also from Swansea University's rent strike, and also partly from Cardiff. And it was this, you know, united action from the Welsh universities, 3 out of the 4 major universities who went on rent strike, campaigning. And that was what pressured the government to start funding the universities the £40 million that they need. But, you know, it's still not enough. £40 million divided by all students inside Wales is just over £300, and that's not even 3 weeks rent. So we're trying to have a rent payment for all students for all the time that they've been forced to be staying at home because of government regulation, and also because of the lack of facilities and the lack of education that they've achieved, and the lack of support that we've received. But you know, they're not even gonna give. They're not ever gonna try and like divide 40 million straight up and give it to the students anyway. But it's just, you know, extra. It's just not what we need. We deserve a lot more.
It doesn't go near enough, really, does it? I think I saw Manchester University, they offered sort of 30% rent reductions there. But again, I think that the extortionate fees that students have to pay both in tuition as well as rent, it really doesn't sort of go enough. I hope you guys get a bit more support from your university with that regard. What would be the ideal outcome for you, Michelle?
The ideal outcome would be a student movement united between all the other, like, tuition fee reduction movement, the rent strike movement, the movement in London with like Liberate the Universities, united under the same demands, fighting with the thousands and hundreds of thousands of students who are fighting at the moment, being united to pressure our individual universities and also the government for a renationalisation of our education, for free, high-quality education for all, obviously, for support, adequate support, mental health support for students, and also, most importantly, a safe campus, a safe environment, not just for students, but for staff and locals as well, which is being run by the students and the staff rather than by executives who are just businessmen. They're just in it for the profit. They don't care about students. They don't care about student safety. They care about what is the best way, how much profit they can take out from students as possible.
I think the students have just done a fantastic job across campuses across the UK in terms of coordinating this movement and sort of really resorting to the strike action we've seen across basically all the sorts of different campuses. What could the wider community do, Michelle, to support students and really grow this movement? I think this is unprecedented what we're seeing. I don't think I've seen anything that resembles anything like the strike action and the movement that we're seeing at the moment among students. What could the wider community do to support students?
I think absolutely try and get in touch with forming tenants unions if you are a renter, or get in touch with students who are organizing. I know it's very dependent on what kind of like what you are, what position you're in. If you are renting as well, then go forward with trying to help organize with students for rent reductions inside tenants unions if you are close to students, but otherwise maybe try and form a tenants union within your own community. Get in touch with organizations that are already in place that do help you organize for that, such as Acorn and Unite the Community. And also get in touch with your MPs, your council, and try and vote for if there are local elections coming up, and you are want to try and change something. Maybe not just for if you don't have any university students in your area, just for people in general. Run for those local elections and go forward with socialist policies. Yes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, Michelle. I think just looking at some of the statistics is quite alarming. It's not only students, there's a lot of people that are in private accommodation who are sort of facing real anxiety over their financial position. There's obviously a lot of unemployment, the furlough schemes that are sort of ending. It might be something that maybe spreads and raises alarm bells to the government to actually support some of the most, some of the most vulnerable, as well as those that are facing real hardships during these times. I think the government's concentrating a lot on sort of businesses and some of the hierarchy, executive level members of society, and they need to focus a bit more on the ground workers. In terms of, we spoke about you haven't been able to attend lectures in person. A lot of your tuition is happening online. You're paying, I guess it's over £9,000 a year.
Yeah.
Is there been any discussion about reducing that because you're ultimately getting a reduced service at the same time?
Well, there was a Q&A recently with the university executive, and that was one of the questions put in place, but they evaded the question. They didn't answer it. And it was very obvious that they weren't planning on doing anything like that at all. And it's kind of it's like being missold something, and they sold us something and they're not giving us what we bought, what we paid for, really. And they're not acknowledging that at all. And it's just it's a complete reduction of what we can do, doing everything online. I'm doing an archaeology course, for example, and I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do like a practical for it. It's all going to be online. Same with a lot of students all across the UK, across the world, I guess. But it's a reduction of the education quality we have, but we're still expected to have received to like give the same output in our exams, in our assessments, in our essays. We're still expected to be do the same kind of level as if it was normal.
Well, I actually saw a comment again from one of the lecturers at Bangor University about one of the lecturers moaning because students were asking for a safety net. They should just get on with it. And she was caught on Zoom actually having that discussion. So that's a bit concerning that some of your lecturers don't seem to sympathize that you're going through unprecedented time and that there should be a sort of safety net. Have universities not offered, in terms of how does this affect your grades? Has universities offered any support with this regard, or is it?
They have just offered a safety net. I think they have just like revealed a safety net today, but I haven't checked it yet, to be honest. But yeah, they have just revealed a safety net today, and I have a feeling that it isn't as good as it could be, because when people were talking about it before, they were saying that they can't explain what the safety net was at the time, but they said that the university tried to do a very like in the middle moderate safety net. So they haven't done it as good as other universities have done it, basically, which isn't that great for students. And realistically, there should be a lot more kind of communication from the university exec to students, or just from just from students making these decisions and to what is best for students, because at the end of the day, a lot of this gets really watered down when there's so much bureaucracy in the way things are run in our universities. The staff are not able to properly voice, the students are not able to properly voice the things that they need, the things that they need to survive and work in this environment, and it just makes things worse for everybody.
Michelle, how do students feel about their future? I think we're obviously going through a very difficult time at the moment, but even before the pandemic, students have this sort of unprecedented the amount of debt that they're burdened with on graduation. House prices, it's almost gone. They can't afford to buy their own house. Employment opportunities are shrinking. What's the challenges and concerns that students currently faced with?
Students don't really feel like they have a future, unfortunately. It's very kind of depressing. A lot of the students that I speak to are very pessimistic about their future, and also about the current condition that they're in the first place. A lot of students feel very hopeless, unfortunately, and you can't really blame them, because it's we're reaching a point in time where jobs opportunities are so low for young people. Students are being taught to, when they go into the working world, that if they can't they're probably not going to find something in their field, so they might as well just get a job in a supermarket. But when they do give in their CV, they have to get rid of their qualification of a degree, because otherwise the supermarket will reject them because they seem too overqualified and things. But it's a position that we're in at the moment, and with the rising house prices, we're being forced to either stay at home or rent, and just try and get enough money until rent day and survive every single month. Because we're not going to be able to get a house until we're probably in our late 30s, 40s, and that's just going to be so much of our lives wasted, pretty much, not being able to really move, be as independent as we want to be, because of the economy, because of the system, because of our environment, because of the things that have been given to us rather than what we have chosen.
I think that's a really good point, Michelle, because I feel like sometimes economic decisions, they usually manifest themselves after sort of extended periods of times. And I think before actually students were born, I think there was an ideology for free markets, and if you commodify things, they'll somehow work better for themselves. So if you charge 10,000 fees and let the markets deal with housing, society will be in a better position. And a lot of these decisions were made in sort of Margaret Thatcher's term, the 80s, 90s, and it's sort of carried on. And that doesn't seem to be the situation. I think students suffer from great challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same kind of market-based, free market-based economy which has made these universities so privatized, which instead of having student unions that are there to help students, there's student unions that give 20% off at Domino's and 10% off on cocktails in this one bar. It's not. It's just like complete consumer culture. Complete, like, there is. It is how it is right now because of this. Yeah.
Well, I think what's really inspiring, Michelle, is this movement. It's been grassroots led. So you're seeing students organizing themselves in campuses and coordinating with other sort of students at campuses. And I think if we're going to see a change, it's only going to come from the ground up. I don't think we should expect any politician anytime soon to sort of step in and say, right, we're going to help out workers and students in our society. Yeah. So I think that's been really inspirational to see the spirit that's currently taken sort of campuses across the UK. So it's been an interesting first year for you, Michelle.
Yeah, it's been a bit regretful first year, unfortunately, a lot of the time. I mean, I'm enjoying being able to campaign and organize, and I'm enjoying my subject and my course, but A lot of me wishes that I never really came to campus, unfortunately, because it's just so isolating, and there's so many like just horrible situations that other students have been put in. It's a lot of like rubbishness and you know, suffering going on, and just rubbish stories you're hearing around. It's not very nice, but at least there's a course I like. At least the teachers are really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, it's not ideal, especially for the money that we're paying for. So that's why. But I mean, just got to convert that frustration into activism.
Energy. Yeah, activism and energy. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we are definitely supporting you from London, Day-Mer North London Community Health. We send our solidarity to you, and we would urge all our sort of community members to join in and get in touch with activists like yourself and really support the movement. Michelle, thank you very much for your time. It's been really nice talking to you.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Have a nice rest of your day.
Yes, you too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Day-Mer Youth stands in solidarity with the university rent strikers and supports their demands for reduced accommodations and university fees. This is it for today's programme. Thank you all for tuning in with us on our first Youth Web TV programme. We'll be doing these programmes every 2 weeks. If there are any topics, any youth-related issues, or anything you would like to discuss or mention, or if you have any questions and recommendations, please message the Day-Mer Youth Instagram at Day-Mer Youth. Thank you once again, and see you all again next time.